It's fairly easy to get water here. It comes from the taps. So it's not so hard to get the water, but we're very careful in how we use the water.
I'm in jail. I couldn't get out of jail free card and I'm spilling water.
I limit myself to 1 load a day of laundry. I wash 2 or 3 times a week, but with just a small amount of water. I don't use a lot of water. Rinsing things out, I just put them in the dishwasher. Dishwasher saves water, so. To concern the amount of money we spend in a month with the water, it's not such a big part for me. No, there's higher things than that. But we've got water, we don't waste it so much. We don't get it, it's not so bad. It's okay.
أنا حسين يوسف عبد الكريم جيوسي من كور، سكان كور، أملك هوية كور، عندي 8 أطفال مع زوجي وحدي، عايش في هذا البيت، مزارع. أنا مزارع. أنا أملك الدخل تبعي من الأرض يعني ما يقارب 1500 شيكل شهرياً. هسا إحنا هذه البلد ما فيها شبكة مياه، ما في شبكة مياه إطلاقاً، وإحنا بنجمع المي من الشتاء عن ظهر البيت اللي تكفينا شوي، وبعدين إحنا ننجبر إن نشتري المي مشترى من مع التنكات من كفر صون. هسه هذه المي أنا اللي بجيبها صعب إني أستخدمها للزراعة، أنا المي غالية، أنا أستخدمها بس للبيت، الزراعة ما في، لا أقدر أزرع منها إطلاقاً، لا أي نوع من الخضار، لا بندورة ولا كوسة ولا أي شيء، بس لداخل البيت منشان أشرب وأتحمم وأنظف البيت وأطبخ للطبيخ وللحمام. بس هذه أنا غالي المي. هذه المي أنا ثلث الدخل تبعي من الأرض على المي، وشيء مكلف يعني، شيء مرهق يعني، في شيء مرهق جدا جدا يعني من قوت أولادي يعني من مصروف أولادي المي.
Almost 20% of West Bank homes are not connected to any water system at all. Each week, to survive, West Bank residents must pay for the expensive services of water tanker trucks. Everyone else lives in cities where water systems are decrepit. They also have to cope with sporadic distribution as best as they can. Long summer cutoffs trigger a water crisis and plunge urban dwellers into the anxiety of daily life without water.
For 90 days we don't have water here. How can we live? We want to live only. What is this? Yani? Simple thing is water.
Can you live without water? One day? 1 hour? Can you live without the water? 1 hour? How can we live?
Really, it's a big problem. Nobody answer, nobody listen, nobody do anything for us. What can we do? Really, I am too much worried about them. I cannot stay. For me, I cannot stay. How can they stay? Can I go, take them, all of them with me? They cannot go. My father cannot walk also. How can he go bathroom? They buy clothes. They cannot wash. Their baskets are full of dirty clothes. Really, I am worried about my babies and others. What is this? They cannot make bath. They cannot eat. Wallah, really, from early morning, I didn't give her anything. not have water. How can I boil? How can I wash? How can I do? And everybody, not only me. I am only one person for 2 or 3 days. What about them for 90 days? This place, which is not too much far away from us, only 100 meters.
Come here and see.
But come, only for us, because it is a high place. What is this?
You can put the camera
Is it
here.
our problem? Where are the
Here or here,
responsible?
where are people everywhere?
Where are responsible people? Where are the water authority?
Excuse me. Do you think that water reach our homes every day? Every day like you? No. Or like Israel? No. Now, excuse me. In summer, as 25 days till now, there is no water. Okay, and because of that, all the people here, they were obliged to buy like this and to store the water. Okay?
الدورة 7-8 أيام بس بقول صحيح كلامك صحيح ماشي
ان شاء الله
بفوت عليك
طيب شكرا كثير
علينا
يعطيك العافيه شكرا كثير
مع السلامة
الله يسلمك
مع السلامة I don't know what to do.
What was his problem? What was his problem?
Not receiving water.
في ناس في الخضر في نفس الحاره تبعتي.
Our main concern during summertime, it's not running an emergency. I believe that it is catastrophe. It is bigger than emergency. Our main problem is, our work is to call to the people complaints. Imagine a person come and say, I didn't get to the shower for about 5, 6, 1 week. Do you accept that? For sure, I don't accept that. Imagine a person, an official person, goes to his office and he go and wash his face at his office. So this is a problem, and I feel with them, I sympathize with them, but I don't have the capacity to fulfill their needs. Our water does not feed every day. It is we feed areas intermittently. So some areas receive water like 5 days and 16 days. Some people will receive water like 10 hours and 16 days. This is because of our internal network, given that we are in a lack of water, shortage of water.
We want water. We want our rights. We are not asking gold. We are not asking gold. We are asking water.
In every place
Water.
in the world, water
Is this happening in France or in America or in Israel?
Water is also a concern for Israelis, but every home does have tap water on a daily basis. An Israeli family consumes, on average, 4 times more water than a Palestinian family. Water shortages are a daily fact of life for Palestinians. Such disparities are especially striking when the two communities share the same hydrologic area. The region has 2 types of natural water resources: surface water, meaning lakes and rivers, such as the River Jordan, and groundwater, meaning aquifers. The green line separates Israelis and Palestinians on the surface, but below, ground aquifers flow indifferently across political borders. There are 4 main aquifers in the region: the so-called coastal aquifer for the Gaza Strip and the Israeli coast, the western and northern aquifers, which are supplied on the West Bank but flow naturally into Israel, and the eastern aquifer, whose waters flow toward the Jordan Basin, which is located almost completely on the West Bank. In addition to these groundwater resources, some of Israel's water comes from desalination plants on the Mediterranean coast, from the reuse of treated sewage, and the diversion of the Jordan's water at Lake Tiberias. However, for the Palestinians who have limited access to such alternative resources, it is vital to tap into groundwater. Water is drawn from boreholes located on both sides of the border. Some Israeli wells have also been dug on the West Bank to supply settlements with water. aquifers have the distinction of being shared by both Israel and the Palestinian territories. How to divide up this shared groundwater between two peoples who have been in conflict for more than 60 years? In this hydropolitical context, water is an inevitable source of conflict, and how to share it remains a subject of discussion in the peace process. The Oslo Accords, which were meant to apply for 5 years but have remained in effect since 1993, laid down the principles of water management in the region. Groundwater was split between the two countries based on the needs back then.
The amount of water we're getting is the same amount that we got in the day of signature of Oslo 1995. The population has been increased, but the water kept the same, so the per capita has been dropped.
The Oslo or the interim water agreement that we have between us and the Palestinian Authority is an interim agreement how to share water between us, and it was meant to exist for 5 or 6 years until the final, we will reach the final agreement. And the quantities of water that allocated for each party, of course, is not enough today. So, and this is why Israel, as I know, is supplying the Palestinians more water than it should supplies according to the interim peace agreement. But it's not enough. The Palestinians suffers from a lack of water, and they need more water.
So the water available to us, okay, we're taken from the wells. Then we found ourselves as a client to Mikrot. Mikrot is the Israeli company. So because there is severe shortage in water, there is a crisis everywhere, we kept going to the Israeli each year, please, to provide us with more water. So last year, we bought 50 million cubic meter. And people criticizing, how come you purchase your own water? I said, what to do? I'm the Minister of Water here, and I have the responsibility to deliver water. I cannot wait to sign an agreement. I cannot let people die. And on top of that, Oslo, they did give us 118. They promised us with 80s. Then they delayed all the implementation of the projects. You want to drill a well? Then they established what's so-called the Joint Water Committee. We have to go through the Joint Water Committees. Each time, whether to drill a well, or to lay down a water network, or to build a reservoir, or to import a pump, or a booster, or to import pipe. You cannot do anything unless you go to the Joint Water Committee, you get approval.
On the West Bank, all water-related construction must be approved by an entity called the Joint Water Committee, JWC, which includes politicians and technicians from both sides. This committee was set up under the Oslo Accords and provides a forum for negotiations on water resources management. It decides future water issues on behalf of the 2.5 million inhabitants of the West Bank. This shows the extent to which water and sanitation play an important role in the tense relations between the two sides.
We did submit in 1998 a request to drill a well. We got the approval in 2005 from the Joint Water Committee. It took 7 years. The civil administration kept asking us the location, and we kept submitting the location. And each time our location is rejected. Until 2010. The Israelis, the civil administration, gave us a location that we don't want. But they said this is the only location that we can permit to drill your well.
So it's not true that Israel didn't accept it. One of the problems, yes, it's a problem of security. When the contractors want to go with cars and along the roads, they have problems. But whenever you have such a very severe security problems, because Palestinians are putting bombs in the ambulances and so on, so the army has to watch for this and make a lot of difficulties in order to prevent these bombs to reach Israeli settlements.
1998 submitted, 2005 the Joint Water Committee approval, 2010 it took 12 years to drill a well. This is the situation.
The agreement between them and us is such that any water project that is taking place, including projects to purify water, has to receive the dual agreement by them and by us. That is, if we wish to have plants or any project for water, they also have to countersign our project. At the moment, for a variety of political reasons, they do not wish to countersign our projects.
On the Palestinian side, a core issue that places water at the heart of a diplomatic impasse is the Israeli settlements. The presence of almost 300,000 Israelis on the West Bank reinforces the perception of unequal access to water. In some cases, only a few hundred meters separate Israeli settlements from Palestinian villages. On one side, there are water shortages. On the other, while not abundant, water does exist in sufficient quantities. Settlers feel that the water belongs to Israel, but in fact, most of it comes from aquifers located under the West Bank, and part of it is drowned by Israeli companies.
When we had decided to supply water, for example, to build new water system to the West Bank, from the Israeli territory to the West Bank, we usually took into account the Israeli settlements and the needs of the Palestinians according to some criteria that we had. But we always developed the systems in order to supply water to Palestinians and also to Israelis.
The Israeli wells provide drinking water to the Palestinian residents and the Israeli residents, but they provide agricultural water only to the Israelis. So you have an absurd situation where for the long summer months, the Palestinian farmers leave their land because they don't have water, and they have to work in the settlements with the water that is extracted from underneath their own feet.
Israel control over these resources that limits the access and limit the amount available to the Palestinian. This is why Israel is taking all the water and they leave a few drops to the Palestinian. And you ask them, until when you're doing this? And you find a bizarre answer that the lifestyle of the Israeli is different on that of the Palestinian. This is not acceptable. The Israeli is not taking for shower comparing to the Palestinian. The issue is not the lifestyle, the issue is occupation, the issue is control, the issue is water thefting, the issue is this continuous control of the resources, of cutting the Palestinian, reaching the Jordan River, of colonization, of expansion of settlements, of checkpoints, this is the problem that we are facing. Water, yes, there's water here, but water is taken by the Israeli, and this is, by the way, why there is a water conflict.
Status quo. The Joint Water Committee's foot dragging hinders any improvement in access to drinking water for Palestinians. The committee's work has been undermined by fundamental differences among its members. And yet, resolving the West Bank water problem would seem to require the normalization of Israeli-Palestinian relations. But is that possible while the conflict continues? The Gaza Strip also suffers from water stress. It does have sufficient water resources, but the problem is water quality. So in Gaza, it is not JWC negotiations or settlements that prevent access to water like on the West Bank.
The water is the main item for sustaining the life of the population in Gaza. Without water, there will be no life in Gaza. As I said, in Gaza there is about 1.5 million population. These are increasing every day, every year by 50,000 at least, newborns. That means the demands for the water is increasing.
As the main water source in the Gaza Strip, the coastal aquifer is overexploited. As a result, seawater has been seeping in for the past 10 years, which has made the water unfit for consumption. Currently, only 10% of the water drawn from the coastal aquifer is potable.
هذه مية حلوة لأنه بتجينا في المواسير مية مالحة وبعدين مخلوطة برمل هذه مية حلوة هذه مية حلوة نشربها هذه مكررة جاهزة يعني للشرب شايف تبعت المواسير مية يعني للغسيل تنفع بس تسبب مشاكل كتير حصوة بتسبب كل حاجة حصاوة بتسبب لو شربنا المية هذه بتسبب لنا مشاكل كتير للكبد وللكلى ولكل حاجة وللمسالك البولية يعني بصير عندنا حصو كتير من المية كلها حصو مية كلها رمل شوف منها رمل كلها يعني مش تنفعش ولا حاجة بس للحمامات ولا الجلي ولا غير هيك ولا حاجة بتنفع.
Then there is the Israeli embargo, which has been in place since Hamas came to power in 2006 and has restricted equipment imports. This has caused delays in building and rehabilitating infrastructure that was partially destroyed during the recent conflict. In Beit Lahiya, in the northern Gaza Strip, the blockade has endured construction of a new wastewater treatment plant that would stop sewage-based pollution of the aquifer, in spite of the international community's support of the project. The sewage problem is interwoven with the issue of water in the Gaza Strip and highlights the seriousness of the environmental situation. As the existing water treatment plants do not work properly, most sewage is pumped directly into the sea with no treatment whatsoever. The rest seeps into ground until it reaches the water table, thus exacerbating the pollution of the Gazans' sole water resource.
If people are consuming more, especially the children, if they are consuming more nitrates, that might affect their cognitive capacity, the thinking, and the school performance. In severe cases, we might see what we call blue baby syndrome may contribute to the increase of stones in the kidney, for example. And as I said, the nitrate is an example only for that.
Water is normally the stuff of life, but in the Gaza Strip, the water is polluted and makes people sick, and things are getting worse by the day. Despite their differences, particularly their political differences, the Gaza Strip and the West Bank share a common concern in the issue of sewage treatment and hence water.
When you drink water, you have to get rid of water. So water and sanitation cannot be separated. Very simple. Only in the main cities do people have a wastewater collection system. And in the West Bank, they are about 32% of the population, and in Gaza, 70%. But in most rural areas, there is nothing, nada. And that's why people in the rural areas are disposing of their water in the cesspits. The wastewater that is in the cesspit can infiltrate, and it will go deep into the ground and it will become a source of pollution. But if it happens to be in a red soil or a retsina soil, then it clogs very quickly, and the only way to get rid of the wastewater is by emptying the cesspit regularly. And emptying the cesspit and throwing it in the valleys It's not a solution. You are just transferring the problem from one place to another.
In most mid-sized cities, as in the countryside, there is no sewage system whatsoever. Sewage is simply dumped anywhere.
From the highlands of the West Bank, where the main cities are, Nablus, Ramallah, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, there are systems of valleys which go all the way towards the Dead Sea. And these are called wadis. Remember that the West Bank is a hilly area. In the middle of the West Bank is the highlands. So the wastewater can either go to the east or the west. If it goes to the west, then it goes into Israel. If it goes to the east, then it goes to the Dead Sea. Most of the water goes towards the east. That's where the population. But 7% only of the collected wastewater is treated. So 93% is untreated. Mainly the ones going to the east. And they are pouring into the Dead Sea.
The few Palestinian sewers that do exist naturally head west. What happens to the sewage when it reaches the Israeli border? The town of Kalkilia is located near the Green Line. It is now surrounded by the separation wall built by the Israeli authorities in 2006. The town's water treatment network is decrepit and empties into an open sewer that runs up to the wall.
The water and sanitation networks here covers almost all the city. We have our resources in water, but we have no access to water to sanitation treatment. So we have to pass our sewage, as you see here, to the Israeli side. Inside the Israeli borders, the Israelis took the sewage water of Kalkilia, pumped it to a nearby treatment plant. They reuse it again for irrigation cotton.
What can we do? So we are taking it, we invest money, a lot of money, in order to treat it. And when we treat it, we also use it.
In the same time that they are asking us as BWA to pay for treating the sewage water, the reused water, they, in the second part, they gain and collect fees from Israeli farmers instead of providing them with reused water. So they are benefiting from two sides.
They refuse to pay. But we, as my memory does not betray me, we are subtracting the cost of the recycling of that water from the amount of money that we have to transfer them because of other agreements that we have with them. But yes, we do that because we think that they should pay it. In fact, again, what I suggest to them is to treat these waters by their own, and then also use the water which they treat for their own use.
Now you treat our sewage, okay, on our cost, operation, maintenance, and even you don't consider then it's a treated water that you can use for agricultural. They take the water.
Look how funny this is. They are not treating the sewage. What can we do that the streams are going from the West Bank into Israel? So the sewage, the raw sewage, all the shit is coming from the West Bank into Israel. We don't want this shit. We will be very glad, Israel will be very, very glad, if no no drop of sewage will reach Israel from the Palestinian territory.
Why don't they treat it as if this is their real homeland? Don't they care for clean water? Don't they care for all of the riverbeds to be clean, the atmosphere to be just clean? I just don't understand it. Why do they let the water infiltrate and drip into the underground water, to the aquifer that we use for drinking water? He who loves his country behaves in a different manner. They simply have to build, to construct recycling plants. That's what they have to do. They say that they would like to have a country of their own. Let them take responsibility of their future, of their needs. We don't have to take responsibility for that. We do it in the interim. But they should start and stand up to what they claim they are. Let them be responsible.
We don't look at wastewater as just as water that pollute. No, we look at these sewage wastewater as a resources, additional resources. If we treat them, we can reuse them. We can provide the agricultural sector with recycled water that they can use, especially in my situation where there's crisis and shortage. But you need to treat the water, you need to build a sewage treatment plant. And this is the problem that we faced with the Israelis. I'm submitted to the Israeli to treat all the sewage in Wadi Nar, in Al-Abadiyya, and I'm still waiting. And the recent meeting, I hear that no way they provide us with the permit. So guys, there is sewage everywhere. You blaming the Palestinian that you provide us, as Uzi Landau said, you provide us clean water and we give it back to you. Sewage, we're not giving it. First, we're not providing because we're purchasing our water. Second, you made us fail, despite we have the money, not giving us approval and not giving us a construction permit. And I'm challenging here the Israelis to show me a single permit they give us, except for the Nablus West that we kept 15 years until we got it a few months ago.
If we don't do anything to the current sanitation, what will happen is that the pollutants will reach the underground water sources. And our children and grandchildren will be drinking polluted water with high nitrate and high phosphate content. So in the long term, it will not be good for either us or for any of the future generations, whether it's Palestinians or Israelis.
We continue this conflict, this mismanagement of water resources. We will continue to destroy the very water resources that both people are dependent on. We are both shooting ourselves in the foot.
On the West Bank, while the Joint Water Committee issues very few authorizations, some projects do manage to go through and are restoring hope to Palestinian inhabitants. This is what happened in Methalun, where after years of negotiations to obtain permission to drill, a water project has begun thanks to financing from the French Development Agency. Once completed, it will supply water to almost 36,000 people. A borehole was dug into the western aquifer. Water drawn from it will then be pumped to storage reservoirs uphill from villages, to which it will flow downhill in the new water supply system.
The new project will provide the citizen with water, domestic clean water, to their houses, to their taps inside the home, with less cost and with characteristics more clean and hygiene water to the houses.
من وجهة نظري بيأثر علينا أول إشي أكل تكاليف. اثنين إذا قطعت الكهرباء عندنا احنا على التنكات هاي وعلى الخزان المي بتيجينا بدون كهرباء بدون هاي الشغله. اثنين حيوي لكل شيء، المي بتنقطعش عنا، وكان هذا امل وحلم لعند الناس، والحمد لله رب العالمين اذا تحقق. يعني حلم كانوا يعني الناس حلم يحلموا انه بده يجيهم مي وشيء، والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Despite the considerable change that this project will bring, engineers and the political authorities are having a hard time charging inhabitants for the service, and in particular in getting them to buy a meter to measure the consumption. The project is mainly subsidized and local inhabitants are only being asked to make a small contribution. So, why are the inhabitants of Mesaloon so reluctant to buy a meter that will bring water to their taps?
Some of the people are expecting that somebody else will come and pay instead on behalf of them. They are waiting the donors to help in paying the fees for house connections.
Yes, there is a problem of culture here. Okay, there's a problem. I blame the occupation, because the occupation, the occupying power didn't come with its responsibility building infrastructure. This is not France, European, American, international community responsibility. This is the occupying power responsibility. But the occupying power failed, and the international community want to enhance the beast. So they did this intervention. This create kind of I don't want to say charity, but dependence.
At the early beginning of the project, as usual, people do not trust that this project will be implemented up to the end. So that they start applying for the water meters. Very few people, 10% of the people, they are waiting to see the water running in the city towns or the village taps, and then they will apply for the water. That's all.
When they pay, when they participate, they start caring about the water network, the management, everything. You create a mentality, you create a new culture. Okay, there is a responsibility lying on us. We're building our state, and we have to be reasonable and we have to be responsible. This is what we're doing, and we're not waiting. We're not doing this to please the Israelis or to please the international community. No, we do this to please ourselves, because we want to create our independent, viable, durable state. This is what we're doing.
Palestinians are convinced that part of the solution lies in resolving internal management problems, and their ambitions to build their own state will have to rely on strong and respected institutions. Governorates, municipalities, trade unions, water companies, the number of people now involved in managing water has made the situation very complex. This governance is so weak that it sometimes leads to water shortages, with ordinary people being the main victims. The town of Jericho, the West Bank's main farming town, is a good example of water mismanagement. The situation there is paradoxical. The inn at Sultan Spring can supply water to the entire population for both household uses and farming, and yet farmers lack water due to mismatched distribution.
والله المشاكل قائمة يعني من قيام المشروع. هسا المشروع هذا لما احنا كنا ناخذ ميتنا كنا نعبي مرتين في الأسبوع الميات تبعنا نفسهم. اليوم ما بنعبيش مرة واحدة، بناخذ الميات كلهم بيعبوش نص البركة. هسا بالنسبة انعكس علينا هذا في الزراعة تبعنا. الزراعة تبعنا كنا نزرع 25 ل 30 دنم موز.
Here the Jericho difference than the other city in the West Bank. We have enough water here in Jericho for irrigation water and domestic water, but we have a bad management for the water. Now we have agreement between the cooperative and the municipality to transfer the management from the municipality to the cooperative, but right now we just fighting. We can't do anything with the municipality, and we have a decision from the Palestinian Water Authority to transfer the management from the last year, but right now we can't do anything for that.
The municipality wants to keep control over water management and devote water resources mainly to household use, but the Palestinian Water Authority wants to split resources more equally between household use and farming. In the middle of this institutional imbroglio, farmers' crops and hence their incomes have declined.
هسه لو بتتوفر لي المية كافية مش راح تلاقي عندي ولا شبر أرض مش مزروع.
يعني هتزرع كل الأرض؟
يعني بزرعها كلها بالخضار طبعا وحتى حمضيات بصير أزرع ونخيل بصير أزرع غير الموز وهذا الحكي كله.
We have to identify two things. Israel problem as an occupying power, as control, as not enabling the Palestinians to build facilities, to build the project, to provide water. This is an issue. Then how the water is managed internally, this is another issue. So I'm not saying that everything is good at our side. If everything is good at our side, we don't need a reform. I had funding now for the institutional water sector review from the Norwegian. I have the World Bank, the French funding, all the implementation of the reform, all the changes that I'm taking. So we're doing reform for better management. But please remember all the time that we're doing this while we're under occupation.
On the 28th of July 2010, the United Nations General Assembly recognized access to clean water as a fundamental and universal right in order to allow everyone to live in good health and with dignity. But is this ambition really applicable to Israel and the Palestinian territories? What conditions are needed to make it a reality? In spite of almost desert-like natural conditions, solutions do exist. New resources can be exploited thanks to desalination or wastewater reuse. Meanwhile, water could be used more sustainably, for example by reducing water system leaks or promoting new irrigation techniques.
You know that in August 2008, there was a very interesting article in the American Scientific about the global crisis of water. And the main conclusion in this article is that we have enough technology to solve every problem of water on this globe. The problem is the management or the willingness to solve the problems.
While the water issue is vital, it is being held hostage to political issues. So does water have a role to play in resolving this conflict?
Water is an issue that should be extracted from the peace process. We should be sharing and sustainably managing our water resources today. Both sides have been utilizing the water issues as a political playing card. On the Israeli side, provision of water to Palestinians in a fair and equitable fashion is left as an issue of the final status of the accords. We will give you more water when we get more land, when we can resolve the refugee issue and the issue of Jerusalem. It's kept in the big picture division of the cake.
And to tell you the truth, it's not important how we will share the water between us and the Palestinians. Because as I mentioned before, when we are looking in the long term, even if one party will get all the water from one aquifer, it will not be enough. We will need in the future to cooperate between us.
But we're both in a system, occupation, and our aspiration for liberation and freedom, okay? And each one work in the system. This is the what makes things slightly moving forward. Really, and we Palestinians, we really look to water as an issue of peace. This is the water that God created to extinguish fire, okay, and not to lighten fire with. This is the how we look at water. This is why we have to cooperate, but between equal people, not between an occupied and occupying and occupier.
Israelis and Palestinians are fearful of each other. They don't know. The average Palestinian sees an Israeli as a soldier. The average Israeli thinks of the Palestinian as a terrorist. The reality, of course, couldn't be further from the truth. They're normal people that want to live normal lives. By bringing the average and Israeli and Palestinian together over shared water resources, we're able to break the stereotype. We're able to highlight the shared needs and the common destiny. And that is what is so essential to peacemaking. The understanding the humanity of each other. In that sense, truly Israelis and Palestinians are victims of the conflict. They're victims of the lack of courage and leadership that we should be seeing from our politicians,